What chance do we have in spotting them using our eyes? Whoosh! I wouldn't rule out the possibility of some sort of portal being somewhere nearby, Juff said. He earned some long looks. Would you rather question me about the impossible after what we've gone through? Mind you, I became friends with a monster of the lake. Juff has an impossible point there, you guys, Ness said. Fuck off. Holy shit, this is awful. I mean, before it was, bad, but it's like downright illegible at this point. Ness said, and I want to put my blind faith on that point just to get somewhere around the valley full of silly creatures. He noted that Chris wasn't looking so well. I think we should just gather some information and relax, though. It's been a pretty long, hectic day. Hearing those words eased Chris. I'd rather do that for a change. Thanks, he said. Yes, we should do that, Paula said until she looked around the valley at the various Mr. Saturns. Why don't we split up to cover more ground and information? These people have a weird speech pattern that makes my head spin trying to understand them fully. That's not a very nice thing to say about West Country accents. They're not that bad. I mean, it's a bit Lord of the Ringsy, but at the end of the day, this is a culture all of its own. They got their own flag in Cornwall. They all nodded, though ultimately Lucario decided to stick with his shaken trainer to see that he was fine. After the other three children walked to their separate ways within the village, Lucario sighed and turned to his trainer. Turned to his trainer. I don't know why I put emphasis there. I feel so ashamed and guilty for what I did back there, Chris. I didn't think you'd react so strongly. He trailed off with worry in his eyes. Chris shivered and looked away to some frolicking Mr. Saturns. Just about anyone who has never seen a bloodshed happen in a universe where it's really uncommon to see would react like that, Lucario. You already know how something similar like this happened before. He silenced one sobbing sound that might as well have stabbed Lucario. What? What is he? So someone who's never seen bloodshed happen in the universe where it's really uncommon to see might react like that, Lucario. So he's saying that is he saying that in the Pokemon universe bloodshed like this does happen? I mean, I know Aura Channeler Chris characterized the Pokemon universe as one containing man-eating monsters at some point earlier on, but come on, fucking bloodshed on a daily basis? No, don't be ridiculous. They faint. Magikarp gets hit by the fucking Hyper Beam. He faints, alright? I know it's dumb, but I don't know, I'm uncomfortable with the idea that all these worlds are really just fucking, havens of blood and guts and gore, It's fucking kids' games. It's not like, it's not fucking, Homefront or whatever. It's run around and beat up colourful characters. It's not tear them limb from limb. Not tie them to different horses and make the horses run in different directions. Anyway. Yeah, just about anyone who's never seen a bloodshed happen in a universe where it's really uncommon to see would react like that, Lucario. You already know how something similar like this happened before. He silenced one sobbing sound that might as well have stabbed Lucario. And just like anyone else who's seen stuff like that, I want to try to forget about it by doing something else to distract my mind. Lucario forced a small smile. Do you want to go around this weird village talking to its people then? He asked. That was condescending. I'd honestly rather rest than focusing on this mission, truthfully. The grass here is nice to lie down on. Boing! The loud sound startled both of them as they looked down at another Mr. Saturn standing between their feet. Either it was the same one or another one. I mean, those are literally the only options. You don't have to say that, Aura Channeler Chris. There's... it couldn't... unless it's like a fucking dinosaur in disguise, I imagine it's probably... the same Mr. Saturn or a different one. It's kind of a redundant sentence. Good goodness, you startled me. Don't do that. Chris scolded lightly. The Mr. Saturn was staring intently at the teen without reacting so badly at the scolding. He continued staring blankly for a little while until the two exchanged glances and looked back at him. So, what is it? Stressed head's bad for life, the Mr. Saturn squeaked. We have solution! Zoom! What now? I stare at you for hours. You look tired. Ready to sleep forever. The two of them found that rather strange sentence not hard to decipher into something easier to understand, causing Lucario to drop his jaw and Lucario to narrow his wary glare. But no fear, boing, we have solution. Ultimate potion, ultimate relaxation, ultimate potion relaxation, ultimate maybe not potion relaxation, zoom! I hate these characters, more than I hate racism, homophobia, sexism, classism combined, I think. Probably. I don't understand. And that's saying a lot in this fucking story. I don't understand. Are you trying to say you're gonna give me some ultimate potion for relaxation? Chris questioned. Oh, did you figure that out all by yourself, you fucking genius? You bathing potion? Zoom! Given the fact that the Mr. Saturns were overall strange and hard to understand, Chris feared the meaning behind those words was something else entirely different. I'm not really up to bathing in potions right now, he said. The Mr. Saturn looked down and thought. How they say? Hot spring, he said. Hot spring method. Boing. We have hot spring. Zoom! Those words clicked Chris's memories. He did remember the valley had a hot spring atop the cliffs somewhere. He had never entered a hot spring before in his life, but now it seemed necessary for him to relieve the stress he went through. Even if the valley belonged to Mr. Saturn's, he was a little too desperate to try that tempting option. A hot spring? I could surely use one if that's what you really have. I've never used one of those before. Lucario was thankful that there was a method to give Chris some time off from the mission. Furthermore, Lucario never used one either. We could use it together, he said. But then again, a hot spring required people to take off their clothes. Remembering that, Chris blushed. No way! You can go about without worrying about changing clothes, but I'm totally different on that matter, he said. Excuses! Boing! You both enter! No tossing clothes or fur! The Mr. Saturn said. Chris stared incredulously at him. Well, you normally take your clothes off when you go into a hot spring, he said. I don't do that. Boing! Why don't you? Chris frowned when he recalled the Mr. Saturn's wore nothing else than a ribbon on their heads. Oh wait, you have no reason to. But I do. Don't tell me you haven't seen naked humans enter in hot springs in here. Yes. Chris and Lucario looked shocked. Naked humans, gross. Never want to see naked humans again. Humans look better with clothes on. Past is cruel. Past is gross. Today is okay. Clothes on hot spring. Zoom, he continued to explain. But I have to take my clothes off and keep Lucario away from seeing me naked, Chris said, embarrassed. I thought it was completely okay for people of the same gender to share the same hot spring, Lucario asked. I read that up in a story before. This is the most boring conversation I've ever read in this fucking story so far, and I include the segment where they order a pizza in that. Just going into so much bloody detail about the fucking semantics of using a fucking hot spring. Holy shit. I don't even know if semantics is the right word. I'm just... Fuck. Yeah, I was right. Oh, I shouldn't have gone on such a long diversion. I'd have looked smart for a moment, using a big word. Now I just look like an overconfident fool. Well, yes, but this is different. You and I have wildly different body shapes, unlike those baggy thighs of yours is short. Unless those baggy thighs of yours are shorts. I mean, I don't want to find out about that just to justify this. A moment of silence followed, until Lucario gave one look at his thighs and said to his trainer, They're not baggy shorts. The truth is not that bad when it's not what I was actually expecting, Chris admitted. Talk too much. I get bored. The Mr. Saturn chimed in. Yeah, you and me both, buddy. Use hot spring fast. It heals body fast. Zoom. Keep clothes on, please, or we look other way for months. Chris sighed in defeat. Oh, screw it. I'm desperate enough to do it with my clothes on if that's my free entry pass. Let's just go and get this over already, because this Mr. Saturn really wants me to go there, he said as he noticed the little creature helplessly trying to push him forward from behind. He complied to the Mr. Saturn's idea and started walking forward into the cliffs where cave entrances were seen all over the several height levels. The trio entered the first one that Mr. Saturn led them to, though frustratingly enough, the Mr. Saturn they were with didn't have a good memory for traversing through the rather long caves inside, filled with a few more Mr. Saturns, doing strange things that they ended up coming to dead ends for over 10 minutes until Lucario got sick of the whole affair and simply used his fairly developed jumping skills to get them all to the top of the cliff. Once setting Chris and the Mr. Saturn down, the latter looked up at the behemoth. "You stay here forever! Easy express travel!" he cheered. "Never!" Lucario grudgingly said. After getting through that tedious event in the caves, Chris's gaze fixed immediately on the hot spring, set up to their right a few steps ahead. The hot spring looked very simple in design, with only a circular shallow pond of steamy water to the right of a small wooden table where an unassuming Mr. Saturn was looking their way. The simpleness of how the hot spring looked like in the middle of nowhere above the cliffs didn't bother Chris much. As long as there was a stress-relieving hot spring at all, it seemed it was all he needed to know, besides the unfortunate banning of taking clothes off. The steam of the hot water floating into the air and shrouding some of the cliff area seemed very inviting, but he never realized his feet were walking straight towards the pond to look at it closer. "Even standing close to a hot spring feels a little refreshing," he muttered under his breath.